The catch, what I didn't understand at that time, when I first went there, they were like, you need to get your bucket. And in my mind, I'm like, bucket? I was afraid, but I'm like, okay, God didn't bring me this far just to bring me this far. After we would have rounds, we would sit, we would eat, we would talk, but I couldn't do that same thing in the Bahamas because, that there's a hierarchy. We kind of like started speaking with them and they were like, oh, they're studying for the USMLE. And I'm like, what is this USMLE? All of the muscles in my body were hurting, but my mind was like, keep going. So I was like, if you can do this, why do you think you can't complete the match?
Hello. You're listening to the IMG Residency Match Podcast, where ambitious international medical graduates like yourself get the insider strategies and inspiration you need to match into residency. I'm your host, Shawna-Kaye Lester, the founder of Memorable Essay and the creator of the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator, a program that helps you create a memorable residency application to match. So if you're looking for proven strategies to match and the inspiration to create a medical career you absolutely love, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. A graduate of La Escuela Latinoamericana de Medicina, Dr. Nadia Fernand is originally from the Bahamas. She made her way to Cuba on scholarship before returning to the Bahamas and working, then going into the match. In today's episode, you're going to get a masterclass, an absolute masterclass in resilience and how to match, even if it takes you a little longer than others.
Hi, and welcome to the IMG Residency Match Podcast, Dr. Nadia Fernand. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. I'm happy to be here.
And I'm so happy to have you. And can't wait for all of our listeners to hear about your incredible journey, and I won't give away too much of it. Okay. I wanted to start you off at 8 years old. Where are you living? Can you bring us into your world and what it's like?
At 8 years old, I was living in the Bahamas with my parents. My parents are originally from Haiti. They kind of left for a better way of life. So at 8, I was living in the Bahamas, attending primary school. And I could say at an early age, I had more of a proclivity towards the sciences. So I kind of knew that I wanted to be a doctor early on, but I was kind of also aware of the fact that being an immigrant from Haiti, the financial constraints. So I kind of had the cards stacked up a little bit, I would say, but I knew I wanted to be a doctor from early on, living in the Bahamas at 8.
Were you seeing other doctors, or was it just that you were excelling in your science subjects at school and someone told you that doctors do science?
I guess, to be honest, what I would have to do, because I spoke English so well, I would have to go to the hospital with my aunts and my cousins, and I would have to translate for them. So doing that, I kind of spent a lot of time in the hospital. I saw how the doctors were, the nurses, just looking at how they managed and their thought process. And from there, I kind of got interested in it. And sciences have also been easier than math in school. So I kind of leaned more towards that aspect of things.
And had you yourself lived in Haiti for any time, or Bahamas was the only place that you knew as home?
No, I lived in Haiti for some time. I was born in the Bahamas, but then my mom had to go back to Haiti because her mom was sick. So I kind of lived there from I would say 2 to 5. And then at 6, my dad sent for me and then my mom. And then I kind of had to learn the full English again because then Creole became my first language and then had to integrate into the English in the Bahamas.
So you're going through school in the Bahamas. You know that medical school is something that you could do. How do you eventually make that transition, and where do you go to medical school?
So eventually what ended up happening was, as I got into high school, I had a teacher. He was from Cuba and I was really good in chemistry and physics. And he was like, hey, you wanted to be a doctor. You're really good. There's a scholarship. And to be honest, when I did it, I was like, oh, the lottery, 1 in a million, I guaranteed to win. So I was like, just try and it doesn't hurt. So when I did it, I applied and they actually ended up calling me back and I was kind of shocked. So I ended up getting that scholarship, full ride, board, food, everything. And then I ended up going to Cuba. But then the catch, what I didn't understand at that time was that everything would be in Spanish. But I already spoke Creole and English. So learning a third language was not that difficult. I kind of became fluent in 6 months. So what I would do was I wouldn't speak any English at all. I kind of would like go to the rooms of the people from Honduras, Cubans, people from Ecuador, and kind of like mesh with them because everything was in Spanish. Your exams, your questions, biochemistry, there was nothing in English. So it didn't make any sense setting myself back. But while I was in medical school, what I came to understand was it's really, really difficult to transition from a Spanish speaking medical school into the English speaking system. Because even when I told a lot of people that I was going, they were like, oh my goodness, you shouldn't do that. Cuban doctors don't integrate well. They don't get work. They have difficulty passing the examinations. And I was afraid, but I'm like, okay, God didn't bring me this far just to bring me this far. So I had to finish it. That's how I got to medical school.
So on top of visiting people's rooms and targeting them to speak the language, what other things did you do to help yourself integrate into Cuba? Because 6 months, that's pretty rapid. I think you learned that very quickly. What other things did you do to integrate, to learn the language?
So what I also did was I got Rosetta Stone. It's really, really good. And I would practice. I would go to bed, wake up at 2 a.m. when everyone was sleeping. I would practice Rosetta Stone out loud, articulating the accent. There's a particular phrase I remember, La niña tiene una vestida roja. So it would never let you pass until you actually assimilate the accent. So I think that helps a lot. And I would also go to parties, go to outings. I wasn't afraid to get out of my comfort zone. I remember meeting this guy from Honduras, and every Friday we would meet downstairs. We would talk about his hometown, and I would braid his hair. So in exchange for conversation and practice, I would braid his hair. I kind of just got out of my comfort zone. Rosetta Stone. I watched a lot of Spanish movies, a lot of telenovelas, Caso Cerrado, the court case thing. I did everything to just, and at one point I started to forget English words. So I was like, okay, yeah, dial it back a little bit.
It's working. Okay, yeah, you actually always know it's working when you're starting to forget your English. Does being in Cuba change your perspective on anything? Because now you're seeing medicine in Cuba, you've seen it in the Bahamas, you've seen it in Haiti. Did being there change your mind about medicine or about anything at all?
I would definitely say that it did, in the sense that when you look at medicine from like a first world perspective, doctors are like larger than life. They are almost next to God, I would say. But having done medical school in Cuba, and the people are so humble, they're down to earth, everyone is equal. Even with my attendings or consultants, after we would have rounds, we would sit, we would eat, we would talk, but I couldn't do that same thing in the Bahamas because, you know, that there's a hierarchy. But in Cuba, you didn't really feel that hierarchy, and it was more so like a humanitarian kind of thing because the doctors weren't being paid a lot. They genuinely just love to care for patients. And I think that the system was a bit more structured and that people had more primary care. Cost was not an issue. So chronic medical conditions like end-stage renal disease requiring dialysis, myocardial infarctions, they were a bit more rare because the preventative care was so well integrated. It didn't actually get to that point. And then people actually have a longer lifespan because of the preventative care. The maternal mortality was also lower because as soon as you get pregnant, you know, they bring you into the clinic, they ensure that everything is okay, they follow you straight through, they take care of the family. So I think being in that system, it kind of gives you a different view on what healthcare is, on what the utopia would be. But everything was imperfect. Of course, there were challenges with regards to medication supplies. But despite that, they gave everything that they had to make sure that patients were okay. They produced their own vaccinations. They produced a lot of their own medications. So I think looking at it from that perspective, money has never really been a driving force for me. It is more been about helping patients, solving the puzzles, and just seeing them go from one extreme to the next was what kind of like pushed me to continue and go into internal medicine from there.
Okay. And for those thinking of studying medicine in Cuba, I often hear from others that the living conditions can be a bit rough. Was that a huge adjustment for you?
To be honest, yes. When I first went there, they were like, you know, you need to get your bucket. And in my mind, I'm like, bucket? Because you know, used to like running water. So yeah, you have to get your bucket. The water was on at a certain time. So we would wake up at 6, we would get our water, and then 10 p.m. you get your water again. because the water would be off by 12. So if you need to use the bathroom or whatever, you would get your bucket. But I think the sense of like community, everyone willing to like get down, do the work, the schedule, we knew what we were up against and we found solutions to get around it in a healthy way because you don't want to get sick and all of those other things. So there are challenges, but it was easy to get used to. I think after a year or so, I got used to it. But when I first went there, the food was also different. You had strict portions, like 1 spoon of rice. I was overweight, so I lost the weight. I went down to a normal BMI. We also have to exercise. That's also mandatory as well. We had like physical education incorporated into our curriculum because it did like a study, like physical exercise, depression, being away from home. So it's like a well-rounded program. You had to exercise, and that was twice a week. And you had like evaluations on your physical status as well.
Wow. This is the first time I'm hearing about the physical education. I've heard that you are taught how to study. So essentially you learn how to learn. I remember our colleague was explaining that to me once when he went that he ran into that, but you also have physical education. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
And with regards to like learning how to study, it was actually a course called Aprender, learn to learn. So it teaches you how to study, what is important, what to highlight, not to highlight the whole book. And it also teaches you to know when you're tired, relax, take a break. Don't be too hard on yourself. Come back to your notes after you've taken a break. And I think that was very, very helpful, especially coming straight out of high school into a university setting.
Absolutely. Study skills is actually a whole other skill set. But, sometimes when you're from systems that just assume that you can learn and that everyone learns in the same way. So yeah, we said it's aprender. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So coming back to the Bahamas, what is that like? Is it reverse culture shock, as they call it? How did that go down?
Oh gosh, you're taking me so far back. So that was in 2016. So when I came back to the Bahamas, I was definitely pretty frightened because they don't accept Cuba's degree right out the bat. So you have to kind of jump through the hoops because nobody really knew what was needed to integrate into the UE, because it's more like a UE system that we have there as well, the University of the West Indies at the public hospital. So I actually got in contact with one of my friends who was doing a DM program, and he had surveys that I did. So I did the surveys, and in exchange, he kind of like taught me the ropes on the camp, see where to get the information that you need to do the examination and what the practical is like. And he also allowed me to shadow him in clinic a little bit to see how the University of the West Indies system deferred to the Cuban way of doing things. And it also allowed me to practice my English with patients as well. And it gave me a chance to just practice the practical, my interaction overall with patients. So I think that definitely helped. And then I did the exam. I graduated in July. I did the exam that following year in March, and I passed. And then I got into internship there.
All right. So we're in internship. We're working in the Bahamas. You can tell us how long you stayed there, but at what point does the match come across your radar? Because I told Nadia that it's not every day that you meet someone who goes to medical school in Cuba and then ends up going again into the match. It's like, sign me up for more suffering. How does the match come across your radar? And how do you begin to go after that?
It's because I have tunnel vision, to be honest. I can't see left or right once I make up my mind. So while I was in medical school in Cuba, there were Americans there as well. So we kind of like started speaking with them, and they were like, oh, they're studying for the USMLE. And I'm like, what is this USMLE? So they would have like little courses kind of explaining what the process entails, what books you would need. And I started getting the books since I was in like second year. My dad got them for me. So I studied in Spanish, but I still had some English as well, because you don't want to like forget everything. So as I would study something in Spanish, I would look back at it in English because I knew the USMLE was my end goal. And working in the Bahamas with the CAMC was just to get enough money to fund my USMLE match dream. So it was always to get into the match.
So you never lost sight of that at all?
I wouldn't say I didn't lose sight of it. At times, it seemed like, oh my goodness, this goal is so far. Because step one was so long ago and it was so daunting, so much material. And then, you want to get a good score. So I kind of became a little bit discouraged. I had some family issues. My mom was ill. So it kind of like slowed down my studying a little bit, and my timeline kind of got pushed back a bit. But I didn't lose sight of it. I just kind of got a little bit discouraged.
All right. So how long does this take you in total? And what are some of the major turning points? So yes, you have this goal, you're going after it, mom gets sick, things get delayed. But how long does it take you in the end? And can you think of moments that you think were pivotal in accelerating the journey or keeping you going on the journey?
So in total, I would say that this goal took me a long time, to be honest. Ashamed to say, but it took me a long time. I feel like
ashamed.
Yeah, it took longer than I would have liked. About almost 6 years, maybe into 7. And I think that when I initially started working and I started making money, I was thinking like, oh, maybe you can do this for a little while. You know what I mean? Because you're making money, you're out of med school. But I think the turning point for me was when I started to look at patient volume as a senior health officer in a public hospital, what was actually expected of you, and the fact that you were learning, but you weren't having dedicated teaching sessions. I really had to learn on my own, like on the fly, based on the patients that I saw. And I can specifically remember one night when I was doing a 24-hour call that I don't do here, by the way, thank God. I was doing a 24-hour call. There was no registrar. I was SHO, and I took 17 admissions that night. Some of them were ill, had to go to ICU. And then after that, I had 43 patients already on my team. My attending did not come that day. I had to put in 5 CVPs post-call. One of my patients crashed when I was about to leave, so I had to make sure she got straight into ICU. She actually had myasthenia gravis and went into crisis. And all of the muscles in my body were hurting, but my mind was like, keep going. So I was like, if you can do this, why do you think you can't complete the match and actually become an attending and have a better quality of life? So it was then that I decided, no more jokes, no more breaks. You need to get out, because that level of work is not sustainable. I can do it, but it's not mentally sustainable. I think that was one of the major turning points for me.
I can't believe you said you're ashamed of taking 6 years. I won't tell you how to feel, but didn't you work through COVID as well? I feel like it doesn't even
I did. I did work through COVID. So the experience that I told you about before was the major turning point, but COVID played a big role. Because, you're an essential worker. Hearing the word essential worker still gives me trauma. You have to put on your gown, and you have to give your all to patients. And sometimes you would be working 24, 36 hours and you wouldn't even get to go home. Your coworkers would fall sick. You would have to catch up. But I did learn a lot. And then it kind of showed you how frail humanity really is and how important healthcare is. So it's like, you have all these actors, these movie stars, these singers, but then in the end, they weren't really as important as we would make them to be, like larger than life. The people who actually had to step up were in the healthcare field. So I think COVID was another turning point that made me realize that you can do this. Like you can definitely complete the match.
A quick pause to thank our sponsor, the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator. The IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator helps international medical graduates like you create a memorable application to match. Learn more at bit.ly/IMG match. Now back to the conversation.
And I think back to your earlier point about the culture around medicine in Cuba, I think COVID was one of those times where we don't blame people for being ill or for whatever issue they might have, but I think it definitely showed us that we want to put a lot in the effort and money toward prevention, because this idea of having a pre-existing condition, and I don't know, well, I mean, you would know a lot of people, but I feel like so many people know someone who lost someone in COVID or lost someone, especially because of, people were compromised otherwise. So anyway, I made that point to say that 6 years doesn't really count with COVID. We say, okay, 2019 to 2020, about 3, that was just all 1 year, just like one long year. So it doesn't even count in 6 years. Don't worry.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think that was the time that my mom got sick as well. So I was like trying to get her sorted too. All of that time feels like one big blur.
Real life, what's happening. All right. So for the person who's listening to this and they might have gotten a scholarship, should be very proud of themselves, gone to Cuba, reintegrated into some medical system, and they're now thinking about the match. Could you please provide them a blueprint of sorts? Could you walk them through what you wish you had known in terms of how to approach this journey?
So with regards to a blueprint, I think that step 1 should always come first. I did step 2 before I did step 1. I ended up getting a higher score in step 2, but I could have gotten an even higher one had I had more building blocks. So I think step 1 should also always be first. It's now pass fail, but you can do it in 6 months. 6 to 8 months of dedicated time is enough. Don't, oh, I need a year. You don't. You really don't. And then I think that, UWorld in first aid. Don't listen to the groups. Oh, I can send you these questions. I can do this. I can do that. No. Get those 2 UWorld, get your first aid, give yourself 6 to 8 dedicated months and practice NBMEs. So let's say you start studying and you're 2-3 months in, get an NBME. The point is not the score. The point is to show you the improvement in with regards to your learning. Because if you can mash through those NBMEs, the USMLE exam itself, step 1, is going to be easy for you. So I think a dedicated study schedule, because you could do IMG if you want to, but I think that those 2 are enough. 6 to 8 months, get step 1 out of the way, practice your NBMEs, always practice. So by the time you do the exam, you should have at least 6 NBMEs under your belt. So you can actually do 1 every 2 weeks. And that is also going to show you, because the exam is 8 hours. So if you can knock through an NBME, which is 4 hours, it kind of like preps you and it teaches you the weeks that you want to go into so you don't get mentally fatigued, which is, I think, something that happened to me in the exam. I was at a point where I really wanted to go eeny, meeny, miny, mo, but you cannot. I was like, oh God, please let me go. It's like almost like torture at the 7th hour, but you get breaks. But I think that going in mind with, okay, 8-hour exam, this is what I need to do. This is what I know. And, they also have the little book. So as soon as you go in, if you remember something, you can write it down so you don't forget, like during the exam. So that's what I would say for step 1. And then give yourself like maybe 2-3 weeks break. Always take a break. It's not the end of the world. You're going to have time, but you need that mental break. And then you would go into your step 2. For step 2, I know a lot of us would be working. So here's where your experience working with patients is going to help you, because a lot of it is clinical scenarios, making the diagnosis. Step 2, I think for me, was really like the regular stuff that I do. I wouldn't say walk in the park, but it's much easier than step 1.
Okay.
And then going back to step 1, biochemistry, stats. If you could do biochemistry, stats, and pharmacology, really like get those things meshed in, you're going to get a good score. And then step 2 would be more like your clinical, making diagnoses and all of those other things. I think that if you've been out of med school for quite some time, also consider step 3, because a lot of times when program directors consider IMGs, they're always thinking about the risk. Are you teachable? Will you be able to pass step 3? Because without step 3, you usually get to take it at the end of the first year, beginning of second, and you don't pass, you might fail out of the program, which will make the program look bad. So a lot of them are thinking, is this a worthwhile investment? Will you be able to see it through? So doing step 3, which is more so management, you actually kind of put yourself a cut above, not the rest, or maybe on par with an American graduate, because you already have that. So that is something that you should consider. And step 3, I think maybe was the easiest of them all for me, more so because I worked for a longer period of time. And then there's something called 75 cases that actually helps you practice the second day of step 3. So it's 2 days. The first day is more so questions that can come from step 1 or step 2. So I would say don't take too long from step 2 to actually take step 3, because a lot of biostats is there as well. I was kind of shocked at how much biostat was there. So, and management. And then day 2, the cases. So I think it was 10 to 12 cases. And once you practice the simulations in case 75, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So, and then that will kind of put you on par with an American medical graduate. You have all your scores, all of these exams out of the way. And then that will also give you a little space to breathe in residency, because you're not going to be thinking, oh my God, I have to get step 3 out of the way. Because residency, as hard as it is, so you don't want like something else looming over you. So I would say 6 to 8 months, step 1, 6 months, step 2, take a little break. You would study for step 3 in like 2 to 3 months. If I could go back in time and I had that timeline, that blueprint, and I think my issue too was a lot of people were saying, oh girl, this is like a pipe dream. You can't do this. So it's like, you're listening to people saying, oh, this is really hard. You're seeing other Cuban graduates work in stores. Some have gone to plumbing.
Working where?
Stores.
Stores? Like what kind of stores?
Like in the mall. Like
you are lying.
Shawna-Kaye, right hand God. Dead serious. So it's like some people go into like real estate. Some people go into construction. And then you're like, what makes me different? And I think that with the program that you're doing for IMGs, it's really good because a lot of the times when I went to med school, I didn't learn like how to package myself for a residency program. It was more so just graduate, go back to your country, you figure it out. So I think that this is where the program definitely comes in handy because especially like for me, I would say like maybe self-esteem kind of plays a factor in how I write because I could specifically remember when I wrote my essay, Shawna-Kaye was like, let me ask you a question. I was like, okay. She's like, do you really want to match? And I'm like, yeah, like, why would you ask me that? And she was like, because from this, I don't feel it. I don't think that you want to match and you have a good story. So I think that if you kind of don't know or you don't think that your story is valuable, you don't know how to package yourself, this would definitely be a good investment for you. Money isn't everything. Money comes back. So I wouldn't think about cost. This is like a once in a lifetime dream for me. And the money was definitely worth it. Because I applied once before, didn't get through. That definitely was crushing. So the second time, just looking at back, reading my essay, comparing the first time to the second, I'm like, damn, that's me on paper. So it's different.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I have so many jump off points now, but I'm going to take us back to, no, that's fine. Thank you. I'm going to take us back to the blueprint. So we have the steps, and thank you for that amazing timeline and pointing out that doing step 3 will give you such a leg up in actual residency. We have a shout out to the IMG Residency Match Application Accelerator. Thank you for that. I actually had forgotten. We should talk about that exchange, but all I'll say is that now that you jog my memory, yes, that first essay had self-sabotage written all over it. Like, I actually don't really think I can match it. I don't care. Here.
Just take what I have to offer. Yeah,
it felt it. Yeah, that's so funny. That's an energy thing. Like I could literally feel, like when someone is scared that something might not work out, so they're gonna do as little as possible.
Yeah,
but yeah, Nadia shaped all the way up, guys. By interview time, she was boss with a capital BOSS. So that was amazing. All right, so we have steps. We have being in a program that can show you what to do, hopefully our program. Anything else when it comes to a blueprint, like just looking back at yourself in the Bahamas, something that you wish you had known about the process or something to see you through.
And I think another thing that I did have too was another one of my colleagues, he's from Cuba too. So he ended up matching at Harlem. So just having someone to talk to, like a mentor, to kind of like guide you through the exams, because he did say to do step 1 first, but hard-head birds don't make good soup. But I did my own thing. So I think having someone to just talk you through, because it does get difficult. It's not just roses and you get frustrated. So just having someone who's already been there and, just drawing encouragement from them, that definitely helps as well. And just your own motivation, family, make time for exercise, make time for friends. You have to go out because at the end of the day, medicine is important, yes, but the balance, the yin and yang is definitely necessary. Don't let anyone tell you any different. Oh, I'm just going to like lock in for 6 to 8 months. Lock in, but take care of yourself.
Okay. I like that one. Lock in, but take care of yourself. I feel like we can use that for so many things in life. Thank you. All right. So your specialty of choice, please tell us what it is and why that is a specialty that you are in love with.
Okay. So my specialty of choice is internal medicine. Yay, I'm PGY1 now. Almost PGY2, thank God. Stop it. I chose internal medicine because, I know you're not supposed to say it like this because everyone likes to solve puzzles. But I think that, just internal medicine allows you to make connections with patients that I think other specialties like surgery or accident and emergency would not, because, you just package the patient and you send them off. But internal medicine, you kind of see them through one of their worst moments, and then you see them get better, and you see them on the street. You're like, hey, doc. And then you get to see what the essence of medicine really is: taking care of patients, getting them back healthy, and ensuring that they still stay healthy. Because internal medicine also lets you see patients in the outpatient setting as well, so you can continue to follow them. So I think that for me was one of the biggest things. And the specialty is so vast, you're not going to get bored. So it's not like I'm going to see like appendicitis or like a foot debridement. I can get things like stroke, depending on the territory, different symptoms, pneumonias. I can get meningitis. I literally had a meningitis caused by varicella zoster. That happens in 1.2% of patients. So that was cool to see, because usually you'll get like more like HSV. So every day I'm seeing like cool things. You can see like cancers, how they progress, how they start off. So it's just a great big world. So that's why I chose internal medicine.
Okay. And speaking about great big world, you are from so many worlds, the daughter of patient, immigrants, migrants, whatever the word is. Someone check me. You're from the Bahamas. You have lived in and appreciated Cuban culture. Now you're in the US. Is there anything that you have found common to all of these places?
Common, I guess, the people from a patient standpoint. Patients will always be patients regardless of where they are patients. I would say that, but I would say it kind of taught me more so the differences more than anything. With regards to having access to equipment, medications, and care, and how that access changes the patient's prognosis and how they end up. Because like in the Bahamas, for example, if a patient needs to be in ICU and ICU beds are full, God forbid, But here, if they need to go to ICU, if this ICU is full, they get transferred to someplace else. And then they get better, they get intubated. It shows you the difference. And it kind of makes, I think it's a little sad too, because, it should be that way straight across the board, but it's not. So it kind of makes me want to improve healthcare in my country and you can just see how things could change for the better. Just looking at the United States perspective and what's available and how healthcare ideally should be if the equipment and stuff is available.
Yes. We could talk about that one for about 10 hours when it comes to costs. Yeah, and the hidden costs of healthcare in the US, but there are definitely things that do function. And when you said patients will always be patients, what did you mean by that?
So when I say patients will always be patients, when, like any of us, when we feel sick and you just don't feel like yourself, you're scared, you may not act like you normally would, and that can just make you feel unwell, bring up things in you that you didn't know you had. And I think that all patients need that empathy. They want to know that I'm sick, I feel bad, you're not sick, but you care enough about me to put yourself in my shoes and want to make me feel better. So I find that whether I work in Cuba, Bahamas, or here, all patients, they want the same thing. They want an empathetic, caring, knowledgeable doctor. So that's what I meant by patients will always be patients, regardless of the language you speak. They all feel the same things and want the same things. So that's what I meant.
Okay. And as an IMG now in your residency program, is there anything that you looked at yourself once and thought, this might be a weakness, or can I really do this? Or as you're saying, there were naysayers in your ears that now you're like, ooh, but girl, this makes you good. This makes you strong. This is a strength.
Okay. So I think that one of the things that I thought was a weakness was the amount of time that I've actually been out of medical school. I thought that would have been a weakness, a crutch for me. But in residency, I've realized that time was not wasted. So technically, I shouldn't be ashamed of it. It actually allowed me to hone in on my clinical skills, because a diagnostic test is available. So if someone comes in with a headache, you don't just run to a CT brain, You tease out how long has it been going on, any other associated symptoms. So my clinical experience kind of helps me to choose which lab investigations are necessary. And that is kind of where healthcare is going, where they're only doing lab investigations that are necessary due to the hidden costs and whether or not you're going to get paid for those things. So that is something that I thought would be a crutch, but it's a strength. It helps you to be more efficient. You don't have to take 45 minutes to see a patient. You could actually pinpoint what you need to know. And it also helps you to develop the skill of, like empathy. You're able to actually talk to patients on their level, take your time, make them know that you are there for them. So that 6-7 year, I think I needed that. I think if I actually went to residency right after medical school, I probably would have crashed and burned. They kind of assume that you know the basic things, but I think a lot of it you learn with practice and time. So I think that time, that practice, seeing patients, it's definitely a strength.
I have 2 more questions. So having worked with you, I feel very proud of you as a person in terms of everything that you accomplished before we met, obviously, and everything that I saw you do in the program. Is there anything that you feel really proud of yourself for along the match journey, not just the match itself?
I think that along the match journey, I'm very proud of the woman that I became, because it's like when you want something and you're not getting it, and you get like rejected, you start to feel small. It kind of chips away from your confidence a little bit. So during the match process, just putting myself on paper, putting down my experiences, what makes me different, what makes me a good candidate, just getting my CV and then looking at the paperwork and like, this is you on paper. So it kind of helped to boost my confidence and helps me to see myself the way people were seeing me that I couldn't see. So I think that definitely helped a lot, because when I went into first year and I was like, you've been doing this. This is you can do this. And it's definitely helped me to glide a little bit, not to toot my own horn, but it's helped me to glide.
Okay, guys, you hear that? We still have some of that Caribbean in there that we have to get out. She couldn't even finish a sentence. But yeah, I guess going back to that essay, it's like, yeah, when I met Nadia, I was like, what? Look at all these things that she has going on. Look at this woman throwing away things. Okay, yeah, well, I guess, yeah, I'm very proud that you feel proud of her as well, because the difference was definitely notable. And I think that there is nothing worse than being amazing and being in spaces, where you need to know that and you don't know that. So that's really, really awesome. As we look to the future, what do you want the legacy of Dr. Nadia Fernand to be in internal medicine and outside it internal medicine?
I think in internal medicine, I want my legacy to be in rheumatology. I worked with a rheumatologist in the Bahamas as well, and he kind of opened my eyes to autoimmune disorders. I had a friend she actually came in the night that I was working. She has lupus. She was on dialysis, had a horrible headache, passed out, ended up having a brain bleed, no CT scan available, and she herniated and she died. So it was just, I think that the way her lupus was managed in the beginning, we didn't have a rheumatologist, and then going into kidney failure, I think all of that could have been prevented. So I want my legacy to be in rheumatology, where I can give back to the community, teach about these autoimmune disorders, make sure patients can get the appropriate care, and go to like the outer islands as well. So I want my legacy to be in that. And outside of medicine, I wanted to be someone who lived, who took up space, who was not just about medicine, about family, a mother, a daughter, a friend. I don't want to just be remembered as Dr. Fernand. I want to be remembered as Nadia without the DR in front. So I think that's what I want. That's what I want more than anything, to be happy.
Thank you. A perfect way to close. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, Nadia, and to encourage those who are coming along. And you heard it from Nadia. I actually didn't even know about this working in stores and working in a real estate thing. But, if you want to continue on your path in medicine, having studied in Cuba on scholarship, which you should be proud of, it's very possible. Nadia has done it and you can do it too. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Nadia.
Yeah, no problem. And if you need me to be like a mentor, or you have anyone who has questions, always feel free.
Thank you. I'm going to leave this in the podcast, guys.
Yeah, but you heard. Pick up sure. I have no problems.
You heard email and say, I heard on the podcast when you said if anyone is looking for a mentor. Thank you so much. That means the world. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you too.
Hey friend, thank you for listening to the IMG Residency Match Podcast. If you're ready to create a memorable application that gives you the best possible odds of matching into residency, connect with me at bit.ly/IMG Match. That's all lowercase. And you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Memorable Essay. Or handle is Memorable Essay. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow, leave a review, and share it with another IMG who's on their match journey. Your support helps more ambitious IMGs to find our show. Until next time, keep focused and be memorable.